Well, good afternoon and thanks for coming. I'm here to announce that after 10 months of exhaustive investigation, an arrest has been made in what was one of the most tragic multiple homicides in the history of Ventura County. To bring you back to a little bit of information in case you, to put it in context, on May 20th, 2009, an unidentified intruder entered a residence on Faria Beach and brutally stabbed to death a husband and wife. The couple was identified as Brock and Davina Husted of Ventura, both 42 years of age. Davina was approximately 6 months pregnant at the time of the homicide, making this a triple homicide. The murders occurred while the victim's two children were at home, a 9 and 11-year-old. The 9-year-old son found his parents on the floor, dying, and rushed to the neighbor's home where the neighbor contacted 911. The only description of the suspect at that time was a male with a dark complexion wearing a black motorcycle helmet and possibly wearing either dark or a black jumpsuit. These kind of cases where you have no obvious link between the suspect and the victim and no obvious murder are the most difficult kinds of cases to work. They generate fear in our beach communities, the area of Ventura, over random violence and potentially a suspect that would strike again. It was alarming to many people in the community, and they've been following this case very closely. Yesterday, our investigators arrested 20-year-old Joshua Graham Packer, 5'10", 160 pounds, brown hair, brown eyes. That's a picture of the arrestee. DNA was collected at the scene and was entered into CODIS, which I'll explain in a minute. Packer was subsequently arrested for a felony in Santa Barbara, where his DNA was taken according to law and was matched with our entry from the Faria Beach homicides. Recently, Ventura County has reached the threshold of 238 CODIS hits involving investigations in 48 sexual assaults, 21 homicides, 9 attempted homicides, 87 burglaries, 35 robberies, and 8 other crimes. CODIS means that it's the Combined DNA Index System, which is a federally funded database that is capable of storing DNA evidence collected throughout the United States at all levels of government and able to search those in the assistance of investigations. And without the assistance of CODIS, the law that allows us to take DNA samples would have been a very difficult case to solve. In 2004, voters approved Proposition 69, which mandated the collection of DNA database. Subsequently, in January 2009, they expanded that to giving us the ability to take samples from any felony arrestee. I'd like to recognize the tireless work of some of the groups that were involved. We can't point out individuals, obviously, but our crime lab, which I believe is one of the very best crime labs in the country, once again came through with some amazing work, able to put together evidence that was very difficult to work with. There was very little to work with, and they were able, through sheer devotion and effort and trying again to come home with something that would help investigators, were able to be of great assistance. Our major crimes investigators, and we've had over 75 personnel working on this case, investigators, scientists, support personnel, from beginning to end over a 10-month duration, including the primary case agents. The entire bureaus were involved, the detective bureaus, specialized units, and our crime lab personnel throughout the investigation, and without their efforts, it would have never come to a successful conclusion. Hundreds of pieces of evidence were analyzed during this period of time, and this case could not have been solved without the very best in forensic science and technology, coupled with the dedication of the tireless efforts of our investigators and scientists.
I'm proud to stand here and represent the people that do all the real work. And that's the men and women of this department that pulled together a task force at a time of need. That time of need is the day almost 2 weeks ago when we got a CODIS hit, identifying this person as our person of interest. The amount of hours and work that went into the last 2 weeks, I can't really get into in total, but I will entertain some questions. But I'll tell you, to assure you, that this individual did not step 1 foot on a public street in this county without a cop watching him. Every method, every bit of the personnel ensuring the safety once we had him identified 2 weeks ago. During those 2 weeks, numerous search warrants and interviews were conducted, and we believe we have in our possession items used the night of May 20th, 09. And we're on our way there. Justice is coming on this case, thanks to all their hard work, especially commending the techs and scientists in the crime lab. I can't go over how difficult it is to amplify evidence and obtain markers in a DNA sample.
I'm Scott Husted. I'm Brock Husted's brother. This is a milestone, a very huge milestone in this process. We're very grateful for the work that the Ventura County Sheriff's Department has put in on this case. They've communicated with us for 10 and a half months. They've been able to only give us a limited amount of information, but they always went into great detail to explain why we can only get what we could get. And I have to say that they've treated us with a tremendous amount of respect. This in no way takes away from the loss our family has had. Brock was our baby brother. There were 7 kids in our family. My brother's here with me. My brother John, my sister Nancy, my sister Sam's in Oklahoma. And it was very great news last night when we received information that this individual was arrested and that it's a very tight case. It puts behind us a lot of speculation, which I can tell you from a victim's family perspective is very difficult. Speculation's cheap, and it's rampant. I've heard, I assume, most of the stories and most of the speculation, and some of it's very painful and not true. And it's a blessing that today we can stand here and put much of that away and behind us. Last night when I went home, before I went home, I went to my mother's house. And I stand here representing her. I spoke with her just before I got here. I said, Mom, what do you want me to tell people? She's very sick and not able to be here today. She said that as much as this drives to another milestone, it doesn't drive to closure. And the pain and the capital that she has expended into the amount of sadness leaves her lacking to expend it into anger. As this trial moves forward, or as this case moves forward, very likely into trial, there'll be more information and we'll have time to see how the case unfolds. But I want to underscore the fact that the sheriff has personally spoken to our family and myself on several occasions. The undersheriff personally spoke with me a couple of times. But more than that, and more than the world-class lab that we have here, we're very fortunate to have the resources, both in the county, the federal resources that might have been put forth on this case, the other state resources that were put on this case. It really came down to blood, sweat, and tears by 3 individuals, detectives, who I can tell you last night, seeing them in the early hours of the morning, they've put forth the effort that you would hope anyone would put forth to help solve the murder of your family. So, we're very grateful, Sheriff. You're a good sheriff, and as you hit the sunset years of your career here, we're grateful that you were here during this time for us and your staff and the people of this county. We've lived in this county for decades, and thank goodness, we thank very much the hard work that you and the people that work underneath you have put forth on this.